Many people are not aware of this, but the foundations of Virgin Galactic and their space vehicle go all the way back to 1996. The Ansari X Prize, launched in that year by X Prize Foundation and funded by donations from entrepreneurs Anousheh Ansari and Amir Ansari, offered a $10 million prize for the first non-government organization to launch a reusable crewed spacecraft into space twice within 2 weeks. The inspiration for this was the Orteig Prize back in 1919 that encouraged intrepid aviators in the 1920s to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, and in the process pushed forward aviation technology for everyone. Similarly, the aim of the X Prize Foundation was to help encourage the private sector space industry to demonstrate that spaceflight can be made affordable to corporations and civilians. A strategy that we have seen bear fruit today with the likes of SpaceX, Sierra Nevada, Boeing, and more. In 2004, Mojave Aerospace Ventures finally emerged victorious with their Spaceship One vehicle, showing the world that private spaceflight was indeed now not only possible but financially viable and paving the way for the future. Billionaire Sir Richard Branson, impressed by their success, signed a deal to develop the Virgin spaceship based on this design. However, after all the trials and tribulations of bringing this technology to market, from the devastating failures, including loss of life for brave test pilot Michael Alsbury, to the inspiring success of sending founder Richard Branson into orbit, the future of this type of vehicle, and indeed the entire company, is more in doubt than perhaps ever before. The current vehicle, VSS Unity, took to the skies for the final time on June 8th. You see, even though the company seems to have worked out all the issues with the vehicle, they have not been able to operate it profitably. For every launch, the millions of dollars of cash burn has continued to pile up for Virgin, to the point where they have now scrapped their only operational vehicle. The future of the company will come down to the next generation Delta Spacecraft, planned to have an increased flight capacity of 8 missions per month, or 12 times that of Unity, as well as reduced operational costs. However, the Delta is not planned to be ready until 2026, and not only does the company need to make their cash reserves last 2 years until that point, they also need to actually achieve consistent, profitable operations of the vehicle in order to save the company, something they never got close to accomplishing with VSS Unity. Can Virgin Galactic survive? And if so, will today's stock price end up being a massive bargain, as they have seen their valuation plummet from over $12 billion to just $330 million? Let's talk about it now. Hey everybody, it's Dave. Thanks for tuning in as always. Today, as you saw from that intro, we're taking a look at Virgin Galactic, their final flight of the VSS Unity spacecraft, and why this might possibly be the final flight for Virgin Galactic as a whole. Before we dive into that, just a couple things. First of all, I do need to thank my 2 newest channel members. We have Brian Monahan and Mitchell Curry. Thank you so much to both of you for supporting what I do here and becoming members. I'd also just like to ask that if you do enjoy space-related content, especially when it comes to investing, consider hitting that subscribe button down below to help out the channel growth, or even just hitting the like button helps out a lot as well. You guys who silently hit like after every video, never saying anything, you're the real MVPs. I know you're out there, so cheers to that. With that out of the way, let's dive in Virgin Galactic. So, as you guys saw in the intro, Virgin Galactic has officially stopped operating their VSS Unity space plane. A lot of people are wondering why a space tourism company would possibly want to stop operating their space tourism vehicle. The answer is simply that they're losing money on it every single launch. There's burning more money than they're getting back, and that's no way to run a business. So the plan is that their next generation Delta spacecraft will actually be profitable. It will have improved margins. It will be able to fly much more frequently, and hopefully we'll be able to make the money. They also did increase the sticker price for each seat to $600,000. One thing I did want to say is that throughout all this, Virgin Galactic's quote-unquote superpower, if you will, or at least one of their biggest strengths, has been their ability to continually raise more and more cash. Quantities of cash that are frankly mind-boggling to a lot of other space companies. They seem to have been able to raise with no problems at all. For example, we have an article here about them raising $300 million in June of 2022, seeking another $400 million as well beyond that through a subsequent stock offering. News story here from Virgin Galactic's website announcing a $425 million convertible senior note offering. And of course, when they did come public via SPAC, they raised a large amount of capital through all these new shareholders purchasing warrants, as well as Chamath Palihapitiya's social capital injecting money into it, although Chamath did end up selling out.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Near the highs and making quite a pretty penny himself. Not going to go into that. There's a whole nother story there. As I've said previously, I'm no longer a very big fan of Chamath, but they were able to raise capital through that SPAC process. Another story here, January 22, announcing plans to add up to $500 million in debt. So yeah, basically the situation is they haven't been able to operate the business profitably, but in the back end, they've continually been able to raise capital through dilutions, as well as Richard Branson injecting some capital. If you're not very familiar with him, he's a massive British billionaire, lots of money. So a lot of investors just assume he can continue to keep the company afloat forever. However, not only did Richard Branson sell some of his stake in Virgin Galactic, he has now announced that he will no longer be putting any further capital into the company, saying that his business empire no longer has the deepest of pockets and that Virgin Galactic should have enough money on their own to execute themselves. So we no longer have this billionaire basically backstopping the company and willing to pay for all the money that they're burning, meaning the company's going to have to stand on its own 2 feet now and make whatever cash reserves it has left last until Delta comes online and gets profitable. So now going over to MainStreetData, a great site for charting and financial information for publicly traded companies. I do have a referral for it in the description below if you are interested in checking that out. You'll get a bit of a discount. It'll help out the channel too, kind of a win-win, and I do use it myself, as you can see. Take a look here at the net income chart for Virgin Galactic. Now this is all in the negative. Zero is at the top. So basically every quarter they're burning large amounts of money. Q1 2020, an extremely rough quarter. I think they had a failure around then or something. Burned $376 million in a single quarter. Obviously, that's not the normal right now. They're looking at net income numbers of around $100 million in the negative per quarter. So you can keep those kind of numbers in mind. In terms of working capital here, you can see when the cash raises have happened in the past. We have a similar pattern, keeps playing itself out. So the cash gets bumped up. They have a good cushion, and then they slowly start burning through it as they're basically operating and not making enough money and just burning quarter over quarter. Then eventually they raise additional funds. How do they do this? They issue new shares or take on more debt. So issuing new shares means that if you're a shareholder, your slice of the overall pie gets a lot smaller. You still have the same number of shares, but there's more shares in existence, so the value of those shares is less. So they've continually raised, and again, several times here, and then you see it drop again. And every time this happens, basically it's hitting shareholder value of their shares. And you can see, the balance sheet is getting a little higher on the liabilities front as well, with those debt offerings we have heard about now totaling like around $660 million in debt. And you can really see here with the share counts as well, when they do issue those shares, how impactful it has been. So when they went public, we're looking at 2020 around 200-ish million shares, gradually going up 234 to 257, 274. 336. Now we're talking 400 million shares. So if you had the same amount of shares as you did in 2020, that's kind of worth half as much of the overall company as it used to be, just based on dilution, something to keep in mind. Now, some dilution is to be expected, especially with growing newer companies. Stock-based compensation is a common practice and all the rest. But to basically double your outstanding share count is not a great sign and very painful for the stock price and shareholders, which we'll get to in a second here. Looking at the overall chart, not very pretty. The thing to zone in on right now is the share price sitting below $1. $1 is the delisting threshold for the NASDAQ, so it's very essential for publicly traded companies to stay above that level and be able to be traded on the stock exchange. This means that they can't just go ahead and issue even more shares, because that would really crush this stock price even further. It's already below $1. There's just not much further you can spread this in terms of the value. They could potentially do another reverse split. I think they may have already done one, although I'm not quite sure about that. But really, when you start to see reverse splits followed by more dilution events, you know a company's in a bad place, and it's kind of the beginning of the end. We saw similar stuff with Astra and Virgin Orbit, for example. Here we have a slide from their most recent earnings call, kind of talking about the financial plan of saving the company with this Delta class spaceship. So they'll now be charging $600,000 per ticket. The mothership, I believe, can support up to 125 flights per year. Weekly flights being 3, so that's $3.6 million per flight. Annual revenue run rate, if they have 2 Delta spacecraft, being $450 million, which would push them into positive revenue territory. So really, I hope this does happen. I should have said this previously, but I have no short interest in this company. I have no reason to want it to fail. It's not competing with any of my current companies like Rocket Lab, completely different areas. This is space tourism, not launching satellites into space. So I have no incentive to want this to fail. I hope it does succeed for the employees as well as the stockholders and anyone involved in the company. I just have so many concerns about it. $600,000 per seat to fly up suborbital, not very long. I think it's something like 20 minutes. I just don't know how many people can really afford that for how long. It's just so much money. But yeah, that's kind of the model. In terms of where they were at the end of Q1, they had a negative $126 million free cash flow number, and they had in the bank about $867 million. So this is what they really need to make last in order to get them through to Delta becoming profitable. Their guidance for Q2 expected to be in the negative $110 to $120 million range. Let's take a look at their balance sheet and financials for more information. I do need to give the company a little bit of credit because they have made some progress on cutting their costs, something that I think should have been done a long time ago, but hey, better late than never. So first of all, on an annual basis over the past several years, getting an idea of what they've been doing. Well, in 2020, their net income number was negative $644 million, if you can believe it. 2021, it was negative $352 million. 2022, negative $500 million. 2023, negative $502 million. So you can get a sense of why they needed to raise just so much capital. It's just a massive amount of money to burn every single year. Going into a quarterly view, zooming in a little bit, we can see that they have kind of cut that drop, that spend rate, negative 159 back in Q1 of 2023. Now, this most recent Q1 of 2024, we're looking at negative $100 million. So, net income number around negative $100 million, free cash flow negative 126, I believe they said. That's kind of the burn rate that we're looking at. And of course, knowing that there's no backstop of Richard Branson putting in more money, knowing that they would have a really hard time issuing more shares with that share price already below $1 and the valuation sitting at just $350 odd million. Let's take a look at how long this cash balance could last and compare and contrast that with when we think Delta might get online. Checking out the balance sheet here, let's dive into the quarterly numbers. So in terms of total cash as well as inventory, other current assets, $837 million as of Q1 2024. Burning per quarter about, let's call it $100 million, means you have 8 quarters, means you have 2 years. We are currently in Q2 of 2024. That means we're looking at maybe Q2 of 2026 at this pace before they run out of cash and go out of business. Now, Delta is expected to fly for the first time in 2026. There is a chance they pull this off and maybe demonstrate Delta, get some interest from new backers, and get profitable. Because remember, you're not immediately profitable after the first flight. Usually there's a ramp up in a cadence and a learning curve with a new vehicle that takes a while to really become profitable. It's not like profitability after the very first launch. So that has me a little concerned. The other thing that has me concerned is the company is not really known for hitting their deadlines. They've been delayed many times previously what they said they were going to do. And as you can see from the margins in terms of how long this cash is set to last, even a slight delay could doom the company, has me really worried. And that's not even going into the broader total addressable market for $600,000 tickets to suborbital space for a short flight. You know, how long are people willing to do that? I think over the short term, yes, you'll have your billionaires, your millionaires who want attention, who want to do it. But how long is that sustainable? Is this a sustainable business model that people will keep doing it forever? I don't know. I hope so. As I said, I've got no reason to want them to fail. I'm just worried. So yeah, for that reason, I'm definitely staying far away from this stock right now. I am rooting for them. I'm not saying I want them to fail. I really want them to succeed, especially the engineers working so hard on these amazing space planes. So yeah, that is why I'm very concerned that we may have seen the last flight of Virgin Galactic, something that would actually make me quite sad. The vehicle has such a fascinating and storied history. I mean, that test pilot ended up giving his life to try and obviously he didn't want to, and he wasn't planning to give his life, but it did happen. To see it all kind of come to naught would be very sad to me indeed. I just can't invest in the company because I find the financial situation and the sheer amount of money they can burn through in a given quarter absolutely terrifying. So here I am cheering on Virgin Galactic from the sidelines, not short the company, not invested in competitors. We'll see what happens, but if you ask me, I would definitely keep my distance. If you are a shareholder out there, I wish you the best. Let me know if you disagree with me and why you're so confident they'll get through to Delta providing profitability. I hope you're right. I really do. If you are not a subscriber, please do consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps out so much with the channel. If you already are, thanks so much. And I hope you guys have a great day as well as a great rest of the week. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.